You wake up and your breath is already visible. Not because the window is open. Not because the heat hasn't kicked in yet. Because there is no window. There is no heat. There is only the dark and the cold and the sound of wind pressing against walls made of bone. This is not a nightmare. For roughly 100,000 years, this was simply winter. The last glacial maximum, the peak of the most recent ice age, struck around 20,000 years ago. Temperatures in parts of Europe dropped up to 15 degrees Celsius below what they are today. Ice sheets stretched across Scandinavia, Britain, and northern Russia. The world your ancestors inherited was not the temperate, forgiving planet you were born into. It was a frozen gauntlet. And somehow, your ancestors not only entered it, they crossed it, mapped it, and came out the other side as the dominant species on Earth. How? The answer is not what most people expect. It was not brute strength. It was not luck. It was something far more interesting. Let's start with shelter, because without it, nothing else matters. By around 15,000 years ago, at a site now called Mezhirich in what is modern-day Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered something that stopped them cold. For oval structures, each large enough to house a family of 5 or 6, the walls were not wood. They were not stone. They were built from the bones and tusks of woolly mammoths, stacked, interlocked, and arranged with engineering logic that required planning, cooperation, and memory passed between generations. Researcher Olga Soffer, who documented these structures in detail in 1993, estimated that each dwelling used the bones of at least 95 individual mammoths. These were not shelters thrown together in desperation. They were architecture. Inside, there would have been fire, almost certainly animal fat burned in stone lamps, radiating heat in a tight, enclosed space. Sleeping bodies pressed together for warmth, hides layered over the bone framework to trap air. Genetic and archaeological researcher Heather Pringle, synthesizing evidence from lice DNA and bone needles found at multiple Ice Age sites, placed the origin of sewn-fitted clothing as far back as 120,000 years ago. Not draped animal skins. Sewn, tailored, clothing with sleeves and hoods engineered to seal body heat against Arctic wind. You did not survive the Ice Age by enduring the cold. You survived it by refusing to let the cold in. But shelter and clothing only solve part of the problem. The deeper problem is food. In a glaciated landscape, plant foods largely disappear for months at a time. The caloric math becomes brutal. A human body in cold conditions burns significantly more energy just maintaining core temperature. Your ancestors needed meat, large amounts of it, and the animals available to them were not small. They were enormous. Woolly mammoths, cave bears, giant Irish elk with antler spans of nearly 4 meters, woolly rhinoceroses. These were not prey animals in any modern sense. They were the size of vehicles. And yet, the archaeological record, studied in depth by Lawrence Guy Strauss in his 1993 analysis of Upper Paleolithic hunting, shows coordinated, strategic kills happening at scale. Cliff edges used as natural killing grounds, ravines that funneled herds, spears tipped with flint, later launched with atlatls, spear throwers that multiplied throwing force and distance. The hunt was not a chase. It was an ambush. It was planned days in advance, executed in groups, and the result of a kill was shared. That sharing is critical, because the second survival technology your ancestors developed was not a tool. It was a relationship. Richard Lee, the anthropologist whose 1963 fieldwork among the Kung San of the Kalahari became one of the most cited studies in human evolutionary research, documented something counterintuitive. Even in harsh environments, hunter-gatherer groups tended to distribute food based on need, not contribution. The hunter who made the kill did not necessarily eat more than the elder who could no longer hunt. The nursing mother received her share regardless of what she had produced. This was not charity. It was insurance, a system that guaranteed that if today was your bad day, injury, illness, failure, the group would carry you, because tomorrow might be someone else's bad day. Across an Ice Age winter, that system was the difference between a band of 12 people and a band of 0. And then there is something the bones and shelters alone cannot explain. Around 36,000 years ago, deep in a cave in what is now southern France, your ancestors painted. Not scratched, not smeared, painted, with pigment, with precision, with a sense of perspective and movement that would not be matched in European art for another 30,000 years. The site is called Chauvet Cave, and what was found inside it: rhinoceroses in motion, lions mid-pounce, horses rendered in charcoal with shading that implies depth, tells you something the cold statistics of survival cannot. These people had interior lives. They had stories. They had reasons to stay alive that went beyond the next meal. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner, in research on hexero-exchange networks among modern hunter-gatherers, documented how storytelling and firelight social time directly correlate with the maintenance of long-distance alliances. Ice Age bands were not isolated units. They were nodes in a network. Groups that had not seen each other for months met at river confluences and valley floors to trade, to marry, to share information about what a herds had moved. The cave art may have been part of that network. Landmarks, messages, sacred meeting points visible only to those who knew where to look. Now here's the part that should make you stop. For decades, the story of Ice Age survival was framed as a competition. Modern humans arrived in Europe around 45,000 years ago. Neanderthals, who had lived there for 200,000 years before us, were gone within roughly 10,000 years. The assumption was that we outcompete them, that we were smarter, faster, better. That Ice Age survival was a contest, and we won. Researcher Clive Finlayson, in his 2019 work on Neanderthal behavior, compiled evidence of Neanderthals using eagle talons as ornaments, applying pigment to their bodies, and modifying feathers in ways that suggest symbolic thought. Paolo Villa and Will Robrooks, in a 2014 analysis published in PLOS One, reviewed 59 claimed behavioral or technological advantages of modern humans over Neanderthals and found that the majority were either not supported by the evidence or reflected archaeological bias. Neanderthals had fire. They had tools. They had social bonds. They buried their dead. What they may not have had, or may not have had in the same degree, was the network, the long-range alliance. The information web that told a group in Spain that the passes to the Pyrenees were open, that told a group in Germany which valley the reindeer had moved to, that encoded survival knowledge not just in memory, but in ochre on a cave wall. Your ancestors did not survive the Ice Age because they were tougher. They survived because they were more connected. John Hoffaker, in his extensive study of Upper Paleolithic settlement in Eastern Europe, noted that the expansion of modern humans into subarctic regions correlates precisely with the development of regional exchange networks, the sharing of raw materials, symbols, and almost certainly information across distances that would have taken weeks to walk. The coldest, harshest, most resource-scarce environments your ancestors entered were not entered alone. They were entered together, with maps in their heads that had been built by 100 generations of accumulated knowledge. So let's reconstruct a day at the peak of the Ice Age. Somewhere in Central Europe, roughly 20,000 years ago, you wake before dawn because someone in the dwelling has added fuel to the lamp and the light has shifted. The structure around you is low and warm, the mammoth bones above your head blackened by years of smoke. 6 or 7 other people are already moving. 2 adults preparing hides, a younger person tending the lamp, an elder sitting close to heat, watching. Outside, the temperature is somewhere below minus 20 Celsius. You know this not because of any instrument, but because of the particular way the air sounds through the gaps in the bone walls. The plan for the day was made last night. A small group, 3 or 4 adults, will move north along the river, following tracks seen 2 days ago. They carry spears. They carry extra hide in case the weather turns. They carry enough food for a day and a half. If they find the herd and the conditions are right, the kill will be made at the bend in the river where the snow is deep on the left bank. They have done this before. Their parents did it before them. The kill site is not discovered today. It is remembered. Those who stay behind will work. Hides from last week's kill are scraped and stretched. Bone needles are used to repair tears in clothing. The elder tells a story, not entertainment exactly, but something closer to a lesson encoded in narrative, the kind that makes information stick across time. By evening, the hunters return. They have made a kill, not a mammoth, too large to manage alone. A reindeer, taken at the river bend exactly as planned. The meat will be distributed. Everyone eats. The lamp burns a little brighter. This is not a dramatic story. That is the point. Ice Age survival was not a series of heroic moments. It was an accumulation of small, intelligent choices made across thousands of generations. Choices about where to build, what to wear, how to hunt, who to share with, and, perhaps most importantly, how to remember. The cold did not break your ancestors. It sharpened them. And here is what that means for you. Every time you feel the pull toward a group, toward a team, a community, a network of people you trust, that pull is ancient. Every time you feel the instinct to share what you have when someone near you is struggling, or to stay put and prepare rather than run, those instincts were not given to you by the modern world. They were forged in a frozen landscape 20,000 years ago and written into the way you think, feel, and move through difficulty. You wake up and your breath is already visible. Only now it means a window is open. And somewhere in a part of your brain that remembers what cold really costs, you are grateful for that in a way you may not be able to explain. But your ancestors could,